This is the second of a series of trainings that we're putting on in April with PTAC. This one is titled Capture Management, Building Your Pipeline. And we are having another one on April 29th called Go or No Go. So once you've identified your opportunity, should you bid on it or not, is the focus of the training on April 29th. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We do encourage you to ask questions in the chat as Rich and Todd are presenting. Jane Stewart, if you can wave, you're with the OU PTAC in Cleveland. You are going to be monitoring the chat and will ask questions at an appropriate time. We do recommend that you keep your questions broad. Please don't focus on the individual questions you have related to your business. That can take us down into a rabbit hole. So if you can keep it broad for this particular presentation, and we will have the ability to take more specific questions at the end. But for general questions, send them through the chat. And if it's super specific to your business, you should follow up with a PTAC counselor one-on-one. Broad questions are great, super specific, wait to meet with a PTAC counselor. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers, and they essentially are going to be working together on this presentation. So I'm going to introduce them. I'll introduce Rich first and then Todd. So I've had the pleasure of working with Rich quite a bit over the years, but Rich Delicio has served in the Ohio Procurement Technical Assistance Program since 2009. Oh, yes. Okay. And again, sorry, Jane, is it being recorded?
It is being recorded.
Okay. All right.
Yes, the slides will also be available after the webinar.
Perfect. Rich Delicio has served in the Ohio Procurement Technical Assistance Program since 2009. As a procurement specialist, his government contracting coaching includes serving 10 counties in Ohio, including Ashland, Carroll, Medina, Wayne, Summit, Stark, Jefferson, Holmes, Richland, and Tuscarawas. And he currently works with 200 small business clients. OU PTAC program emphasizes the importance of developing business relationships and resources to understand and successfully obtain contracts in public procurement. The Ohio University PTAC team serves 62 counties with over 900 companies that were awarded $950 million in contracts during 2019. Rich received both his MBA and BSBA from Youngstown State University, and he has over 25 years of experience in procurement management, 12 of which he directed the material management or purchasing department at YSU. So really happy to have him on board today. And then we also have Todd Packer. So Todd Packer is an advisor with the Small Business Development Center at Kent State University's College of Aeronautics and Engineering, which provides no-cost consulting to Northeast Ohio small businesses. He has experience in identifying and capturing government opportunities for research and development, with a particular focus on advanced manufacturing and innovative technology. He recently achieved foundation level certification from the Association of Proposal Management Professionals. Todd is excited to be a part of the innovation ecosystem in Ohio that is supported by the U.S. Small Business Administration, and is honored to work with the dedicated professionals of Ohio's Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, including Rich Delicio. So really good that you're working together today. So before I hand it off to you, I will virtually introduce you to my colleague, Shonda Harris. She is going to take over the moderating duties, and she is going to close out the presentation. But she is also a major pleasure to work with. So I hope that all of you enjoy today's presentation and learn a lot. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rich and Todd.
Good morning, everyone. This is Rich Delicio. Thank you for having us. First thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to stop my video because I've been getting the unstable internet flash all morning, and I'm a little concerned. So you're going to hear me and not see me, which is okay, I'm sure, and that way you won't get the glare from my forehead also. So, but I would like to start by thanking SBA Columbus. Anytime Jill and Shonda ask me to talk, I'm going to say yes, because, well, not every time, but let's say 95%. And the reason is because both of them have the PTAC background before they went to the SBA. And I had the pleasure of learning from them. And now I still get to work with them. Not too many of my counties touch Columbus, but being part of the OU program, we talk constantly throughout the state because we cover the 62 counties. And having Jill and Shonda as part of our resource is very important. I'd like to thank Jane, and Jane is my immediate supervisor, and our statewide OU supervisor, Sharon Hopkins. They do all the legwork. Todd and I just have to show up and talk, which is great. So I think it's very important if you're new to PTAC to be in touch with Jane and me afterwards. We'll be glad to share our basic information and understanding of that. If you're from out of state, we can also direct you to the PTAC in your state. And now my slides won't go. Here we go. Okay, before I go any further, Todd, you want to open up, please? Todd.
Todd, if you're talking, I think your line is muted.
Okay.
We may have lost Todd.
You may have lost Todd. Okay. So this is the PTAC acknowledgement. You know, this is part of the explaining why and where we get our funding, but also from the standpoint that, you know, what I'm going to be talking about today is a little bit more Delicio based than PTAC based. You know, my job has certain goals and certain ideas, and I try to follow those as much as possible. But every now and then I go off that to help someone. So, and that's, you know, that's true of all of us, that our main focus is to help people, especially small businesses in Ohio. So Todd, when you're in, please let us know. The acknowledgement, you know, that I'd also like to make this time is really one of the reasons I wanted to bring Todd into this program, is not only because of his excellent background, but because of the SBDC. I think a lot of companies in Ohio look at them mainly for startups or helping you develop a business plan, whereas their expertise is also very good for established companies that are trying to increase their business development, whether it is in government or in any sector. So again, it's important to understand that they are also a very good reason. And when I got this topic, I was, you know, first I wanted to look through my notes, but also I wanted to make sure that I included Todd because I think he's an excellent speaker in this area. And also from the standpoint of, you know, we want you to be resourceful. The best way to do that is show that we are resourceful in the PTAC program. And, you know, the two people that really have helped me from the beginning are here today, Jane Stewart and Todd. Todd was part of SBDC when I first started in 2009. I was homed in the Kent State SBDC office. Then I went over to OU when they picked up my contract. But Todd and then Jane was, you know, I first started calling Jane Coach when I started this program, and I still call her Coach today. They're the most influential in my development, in my understanding, and I'm glad they're here with me today. And I hope Todd gets on the phone pretty soon so we can.
Thank you, Rich.
Here we go.
Yes, thank you, Rich. It is an honor to be here and excited to have the opportunity to share some lessons learned and some ideas to help the all attendees and small businesses in Ohio be successful with capturing government contracts.
And also to keep me professional.
If necessary, I think you are.
I think it's necessary. So this is PTAC, really our number one goal, our mission is to get you procurement ready, all right, in the government sector, federal, state, and local. I'm going to be talking, majority of what we're talking about as far as pipeline deals with federal procurement, but I'm also going to apply some of that to the state and local. I think it's important to understand that, especially if you do not have past performance with the federal government. There's no reason not to look at local for that as you try to figure all this out. One of the things that I want people to understand is that, we're available. We are coaches, and when I talk about PTAC, when I talk about SBDC, but the main point is that we have to listen, and listening is great for our development, our understanding. And I don't go a day without asking one of my colleagues within the PTAC program about something either comes across me from a client or from a email announcement. So I think that's very important to understand the communication that is really driven by our clients. This is the second of three of the SBA, Columbus SBA / OU PTAC pipeline program. The first one that was last Thursday is already at our website. That will be on my last slide if you want to check that out later. We encourage you to do that. That was done by our Dayton PTAC specialist, Billy Grill. It was a great program. He talked a lot about beta.sam, so we're not going to talk too much about that today, but I think his reference to it is excellent, and I think you should check that out. When we talk to our clients when looking at proposals, it's always good to read it 2 or 3 times. I don't think it would be a bad idea to listen to Billy 2 or 3 times to get a good understanding so you don't miss anything for a lot of his great ideas and messages. So I wanted to make sure I said that. I have to apologize. My computer is freezing up when I try to hit the next button too. So today we are going to really try to talk about 3 main points. Capture management, as far as, identifying your competition, how the PTAC research can be of assistance, and then how to drive that research to resources, to where you belong, and to relationships, so that you can develop relationships in the market that you're trying to compete in. And I think one of the main points that we want you to start with is, we want you to think strategically, but it really, to be involved in and develop a pipeline, you have to have a competitive mindset. You have to love it. You have to talk it. Competition has to be something that is strongly inside you and drives you into this intense, and it has to be intense, your research and your pursuit, okay? You have to be calm after you go through all the exercises and the research. But I think that the competitive mindset is really that you have to understand you're competing against incumbents, you're competing against some very strong companies. If you're a smaller company or a younger company, sometimes that's a disadvantage. Sometimes it makes you more flexible, and you stand out. That's really what you have to rely on, is to separate yourself a little bit. But early on, you really have to identify where you belong. So some of the learning objectives for today, how to mobilize as far as, you're a small company, So you have to be able to move within and out a lot of things in a very quick fashion. You know, you don't have a 10-member team looking at capture management. So you really have to make those decisions maybe a little bit sooner, a little bit faster, and also from the standpoint of maybe not looking as broad as some of the larger companies. You don't have that luxury. We're going to talk about the classification codes. We really think the product supply codes, PSC codes, are more specific and better drivers than the NAICS codes. And then we think, again, when we say about getting small, take advantage that you are a small company. Stay small. You don't want to compete against the big boys. You can get lost there very easily. And then, you know, the 3 R's, the research, the resources, and the relationships. I included this statement, a code of ethics from the Public Procurement National Association of Educational Procurement, NAEP. That is something that when I was at a university, Youngstown State, in charge of purchasing, that was part of our code of ethics that we shared within our purchasing materials management department. This public procurement code of ethics has about 14 guidelines that have been accepted and are utilized to this day. And the list actually seems pretty similar to what I had over 12 years ago, but it's still out there today, and it is endorsed by the state of Ohio public universities, public IUC PG is what they're referenced to. So, and again, the reason that I wanted to make this point, really 2 things. Number one, the competitive, you know, grant competitive suppliers equal consideration. Okay, accord courteous reception time, you know, to legitimate businesses. So if you are competitive and you are in the right spot, okay, you should expect respect from the buyers, from the procurement people, and that goes for all, you know, all levels. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand part of your pipeline. Make sure you're in the right spot. Do the research. Make sure that, yeah, I do match up to this. Here's why. I am competitive. Here's why. Those are very important things to have before you can be considered seriously. And I think it's important to understand, just like the SBA people and the SBDC and the Ohio PTAC, we're public employees. Your tax dollars pays our salaries. That is also true within the other parts of the government. And whether or not they like it or whether or not they like to hide doesn't really matter. They deserve your respect, and you should expect that. It doesn't mean they're going to talk to you all the time, but they should treat you with respect. So capture management, we're going to start with this basic definition. And again, what we're trying to show you today is really, you know, you have to be very flexible. You have to be very understanding of maybe narrowing down your selection, even early on, and then move throughout that as you start developing a pipeline, a capture management program. We think it's important to get as much information in advance. And the reason that it's important is because when the proposal comes out, okay, and also where it's going to be as far as the entity, the source, you want to have a good understanding, hopefully even a relationship prior to that initial release. You have to have a good understanding of the incumbent. Federal contracts, especially, the incumbent has an advantage. There's no other market where incumbents win, okay, at a higher percentage. You're dealing with that on a lot of contracts. There's also times when the incumbent is not doing a very good job. They may get kicked out early, or they may not even be considered. Those are the ones that you definitely want to jump on and try to get that intel of why and get it in advance. And then also as a small company, you definitely want to look at the necessary partners, understanding of what you may need, especially if you don't have the past performance or if you don't meet the scope of work criteria that you think is going to be out there. So again, a lot of this early information. Sometimes we, look at PTAC. We can help you scout out some of this information through our tools, through our relationships, through our clients that can help you move forward in this arena. Our next slide is very important from the standpoint of what it takes to really have success in capture management. I was hoping for Todd to take over here. I guess he is not with us again. All right. So this, again, when you're dealing with capture management, I think the thing you have to understand is it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort just to make sure you're in the right framework, in the right format where you have a chance. And so a lot of times, and again, reflecting back to my time at Youngstown State, I would be in charge of purchasing, and then I would say, okay, you're an IT company, you need to talk to our IT staff. Here's the next proposal coming out from our IT people. Okay, here's the registered clients for that software, hardware, whatever it may be. Okay, and what I would tell my companies that would register with the purchasing, and registering is very important early on, no matter who you want to do business with. I would tell them basically patience and persistence. Okay, meaning it's not going to be released for 5 or 6 months. You have to be, you have to be patient for it. Okay, then if they don't win, hey, persevere. Here's our next one. Okay, and so even though I no longer am on the buying side, I give the same message: patience and persistence. You have to go through the cycles. You have to go through the understanding of when they're going to do things, when the opportunity, the small windows of opportunity do have a chance for you. And so it's important, again, to understand that as you move forward. Innovative strategies have been, I would say, taken off in federal government over the last couple years. And I think that's important to understand if you have a new product and a new understanding. So I'm hoping Todd's back.
I am back.
Okay.
So as Rich mentioned, expecting respect is a really important aspect of capture management. And that also means to respect what you have to offer as a business. So whether you have never considered or never begun the process, or if you have done several contracts, recognizing how to expect what you have to offer is critically important. And respecting that this is going to be a process, that you'll need to have patience as you develop these connections and relationships, perseverance, as you may not succeed each and every time. This is a long-term process, and procurement, that you are to recognize the unique aspects of how this works for specific agencies, specific government decision makers, and specific services and products that you offer. And we're excited to share with you today some general ideas that will help guide you in understanding how to create a successful capture management process that will hopefully increase the likelihood of your success. Next slide.
So a lot of the data that you are getting in your initial research, and throughout this presentation, we use I wrote most of it because I was thinking, hey, how do we get companies to understand this? And I'm thinking mainly of our PTAC clients, and that's, you know, I've dealt with over the years. And the reason I say that is because the word exercise really is, you have to take from the standpoint of that's what it is. You're just going into it, kind of looking at what is out there for me. Okay, what is out there for my small company? And so, and the word, you know, exercise, again, exercise, getting small, thinking of, you know, I am a small company. I can't afford to look at these 5 different proposals. I have to pick 1, maybe 2. I'm going to pick 1 agency. Where do I match up the best? Maybe 1, maybe 2. Okay. And then we want to make sure that all this information is available, if you have more than 1 person involved, into the, you know, to the capture management, the manager, the person is going to make that decision. Okay. And we're going to, you know, try to get all that information available for that go or no go decision. So again, all this scouting information, all this important stuff from the standpoint of who we're going to go with, you know, what are we going to look at, you know, do we need to make sure our team's in place? Do we have a team? Things like that, okay? And that amount of intelligence is so important to define your strategy prior to that release, okay? If you're coming in after the fact, you're at a disadvantage. And so really, again, the goal is to start writing, to start having in place where you think you fit before it even is released. And that's not easy, and it's time consuming, but I think it's important to understand that is what you're competing against. So this is our, you know, basic capture management process. You know, the 6 basic steps for, again, for getting involved in looking at proposals and developing your pipeline. You know, one of the things that, again, I like to reference my clients. One of my software companies, he was a subcontractor on an SBIR proposal, but he was the proposal writer. He prepared their winning SBIR proposal. His viewpoint was stronger, and also from the standpoint that the first time they wrote it, the SBIR failed. But again, that is the value of teaming, and again, of understanding how critical it is to look for that, to look for the solution. You know, SBIR is, you know, you're going after, I have this innovative solution here, look at me. And they failed the first time, which, you know, SBIR's, you know, 22% get it through, 22%, okay, very low percentage. And this company was the second time. A lot of times companies take 3 or 4, okay? You don't have 3 or 4 opportunities on a proposal if you're dealing on, you know, regular procurement. But again, understand that the idea of teaming, of getting someone that is more in tune to answering and meeting the criteria involved is a great resource. Having people that can go after data, people that, you know, that are data miners, so to speak. If you're not one, get one on your team, you know, get one on your resource. It's very critical. And again, hopefully you consider PTAC to help you in that regard too. Our next slide really gets into the win strategy, and you know, that was number 3 bullets on the last slide. And that's very important to understand what likelihood and what do I need to develop to win.
So I can hop in here. So this is from the APMP, which is the Association of Proposal Management Professionals, their book of knowledge. And proposal managers recognize that capture management is as critical to successful proposals as meeting the proposal specific requirements. And fundamentally what this presents is the idea that your goal is to go from being an unknown quantity to being a preferred customer of the government. That can take time. That can take situations where you may not win contracts. It may take time to understand what the specific needs are and the times of the government. But as you recognize each step you get that's closer to this goal of moving from an unknown resource to a preferred resource is the goal of capture management. Your goal is to capture attention of the customer. And that's where working not only in terms of the data, recognizing the opportunities that become available and are potentially going to be available by looking at what the government has purchased in the past, but also to see what other opportunities there are to get knowledge of your skills, your products, and your services to the government customer. It may sound similar to marketing efforts in general, and there are some unique aspects of marketing to the government, but fundamentally, these are the steps that you want to go to capture this business. And recognize that you may be known today through connections that you have to other customers that do work with the government or through personal and professional networks, that you may be more known than you recognize today. But ultimately, that is the goal. Next slide.
So part of the capture management is really diving into and understanding, your future customer, the public entity's viewpoint, okay? And that has to be something that during your data collection, intelligent collecting, gathering, you get an understanding of that. You have to be resourceful. This is maybe where you call a friend, gets an idea of somebody that previously worked at NASA Glenn, if you're trying to get involved there, or see if you can get, a partner from the people already in there if you don't have the past performance. But again, you have to look from the standpoint of what is their, ideal candidate. They can pick whoever they want, and they can be very selective. And that's where the competitive nature comes in to play. How can I be more competitive? How can I explain that my competitive reputation, my track record, meets the performance work statement, the PWS, okay? And again, is there future work? What do I have to do as a company to, you have to elevate the highest priority. If that is something you feel like you match at, you have to drop other things to make sure you're ready for that opportunity by putting together a team, by developing that relationship, just even understanding if you can't get FaceTime. But I think it's important, to start this process very early on, to look 5-6 months in advance to make sure that you're ready for it and that they understand and that you're visible, that you are part of the discussion for that project or program. Our next slide, again, is something that, the federal government especially, don't treat it, any different than the commercial. You get shot down, the commercial, it doesn't faze you. You get shot down in federal, sometimes, it stops you. You can't have that approach.
And I can jump in here. One of the most challenging experiences I've had as a small business advisor is when I hear from customers, oh, I tried this once and it was too much work, or we were rejected for this contract opportunity and it took us so much work to do the proposal, it's not worth it. And it's sad, frankly, because not only does that mean that that company is unable to access the government resources and opportunities that may be available beyond that one attempt, but it also is sad that the government is not able to access what might be a critically valuable service or product simply because of this one specific issue. So I really encourage you as listeners to not give up yet, in the sense that you want to have some experience trying this. Capturing government business can seem overwhelming. Even in this session, you may hear ideas of, wow, data mining and you know, reviewing opportunities and all this stuff. This is different than how you do your commercial business. However, the goal that we want to convey is that there are ways you can reduce the sense of it being overwhelming, and you can also leverage what you are doing for government capture to help your business in general. In terms of the understanding your customer requirements, building content from your proposals you can use for your marketing materials. Each effort is, please do not see this as a wasted effort if you do not win. You are building your experience in doing this, and you will be better each time. It does take more than one try. Our goal also is to provide, again, you'll be hearing us talk about working with your PTAC, because it's important to learn to drive before you enter the race. There's part of the reason that the PTAC exists is because the government recognized that they need to help businesses understand how to be successful in this space. So take the time to understand there will be more opportunities. You may get excited about a particular bid you see. Please recognize that that customer is likely to need that service in the future, and other government customers will need it. Understand what you are about to engage in before you respond, and this is where the resources are here to help. Fundamentally, you want to build your experience to reduce the risk, both the risk of losing contracts when you submit to them, and reduce the risk of losing your valuable and limited time as you engage in this process. So you can build that experience in multiple ways. You can subcontract with a more experienced government contractor. You can build experience in the private sector with entities that are recognized by the government as having critical experience. And you can build experience with other public sector, local government, universities, other environments that are easier to access than federal government opportunities immediately. And finally, if you haven't heard it enough, you are not alone. The PTAC program is here to assist you. SBDCs are here to assist you. SCORE programs are available to help support you with this. And even in this session today, I hope you recognize the wide array of businesses that are also facing these challenges. It can be pretty, you can experience it as pretty lonely as you are trying to respond to the proposals on the deadline and doing all these things, but recognize you are part of a network that is here primarily to help you be successful in this, because the government needs the technology and services and products that your business can make available. Next slide.
Rich and
Yes.
Todd, you had mentioned earlier about APMP.
Mm-hmm.
Is that does that certification help small businesses, and how does it relate to PTAC and SBA?
I can answer that. So the certification of the Association of Proposal Management Professionals is primarily for a way that you can evaluate potential proposal writers and support folks. It does not necessarily, it's definitely not a requirement to be successful as a small business contractor with the government. And APMP is a professional association of people involved in proposal management. The certifications that are offered help train professionals like myself who've gone through it to be more effective at understanding the demands that come into a capture management cycle, and help with the specifics of managing proposals in terms of how to understand reading the requirements and that type of thing. The Associated Proposal Management Professionals is a great resource if you want to identify folks in that space, but it is definitely not a requirement for small businesses. It may assist if you are in a situation where you are dealing with a lot of government proposal writing and contracts and that type of thing. But I do want to assure folks that the best experience with this is experience, and being able to get the contracts and build the relationships with the specific customer is probably what I would suggest as the the best method to have more success with these. I don't want to discount the certification, but I do want folks to recognize that it is a certification of specific professionals in this space that can assist companies, but it's not necessarily a certification of your business in the way that Rich may talk about other types of certifications that will help you get advantages if you qualify as a specific socioeconomic status, if that makes sense.
Mhm. How long does it take to get that certification?
So the foundation level certification of the Association of Proposal Management Professionals, and if folks are interested in general, they can visit apmp.org to learn more about the association and these programs. They do have multiple levels of the certification. So the foundation level, it's the way I did it was as a member of the Greater Midwest chapter, which covers Ohio and several other states. They did include a kind of a peer study group for it. And then you have to be familiar with the body of knowledge of the association. So it probably took, and it does depend on having experience in the field. But it took me maybe about 3 to 6 months probably for studying and that type of thing, but that's because I'm a working professional as well, so I wasn't able to devote full time to it. Study group was about, I think, 8 sessions and then additional time to practice and so forth. I think the time would vary depending on your familiarity with proposal management, but it is critical to recognize that this is a certification for people who have had experience in writing proposals. It won't necessarily, the certification alone won't necessarily train you in what you need to do specifically for government, but it helps you. It's kind of a way to recognize that someone you're working with to help with the proposal side has this type of qualification. But again, you want to make sure they have experience in the kinds of proposals you're seeking help with.
Okay. Thank you, Todd.
You're welcome.
And I'd just like to add, Todd is very modest. He's very good at proposal writing. That's why, when I got this assignment, I thought, oh, let me ask Todd. And again, being resourceful, this is something that you can maybe look at, but your priorities are, today's cash flow, getting work, things like that. But if you have the time, or a member of your team, again, your team, or you may have someone that you lean on already to be a proposal writer, there's all ways of getting more information and more understanding. Moving on, we want to really start getting into the idea of what, the exercising of where you fit, okay, the classification codes. So this is, the PTAC classification code ranking, NAICS code number 1, product supply codes 2, FSC, which leads to the national stock number, and then also from the state of Ohio, UNSPSC codes, number 5 and 6, not as popular, maybe more old school, especially the SIC codes, but again, they're all related from the framework of what industry number, industry number belongs to you. And so this really is a simple breakdown of, how the numbers, I call them families. The NAICS codes, which are 6-digit, which are federal based, really start with a 3-digit family. I give the example of 541 and 238, where they belong. The PSC and FSC codes are, they're like their own little family. They're cousins, okay? PSC codes, Alpha Start, and they're, again, services, with my example of the R703. And then the FSC, product-based, numeric, okay? And then I use the 65 as a start, and then you can see 6520, dental instruments, equipments, et cetera, et cetera. The FSC codes are the prefix for the national stock number, 13-digit national stock number. And we'll be getting into that in a few slides. And then within the state of Ohio, okay, the UNSPSC codes, 8-digit, a lot of them, I call them the parent. I don't know if anybody else does what I do. So the janitorial services parent is 76, the 4-digit zeros. And then more specific, you have that 7611 with the floor waxing and carpet cleaning. And again, the more specific, and that's where I think the product supply codes and FSC codes come into play. When I first started, I was, really looking and doing research, NAICS base. Since last October, when they came out with the new PSC codes, where they really identified more service, more alpha in that update, I've been using that a lot more in my research for my clients. And that's one of the main points I wanted to make today, is directing your research to more specific codes, the PSC and FSC codes. This is a basic slide about SAM. You got to be in SAM to do federal contracting. Every time PTAC talks, we have to, I think we should talk about this. This is mainly for the newbies, but also from the standpoint, and at least in my dealings, I don't go a week without helping someone with the SAM issue, and their companies already have been approved, or they're currently inactive, okay, and they're trying to get back in it, whatever it may be. But again, understand that it's very precise, okay, as far as your registration with the state of Ohio, if that's where you're from, or from Delaware. We have a lot of companies that are registered in Delaware. Again, that address, that name of the company, the DBA has to be precise. And again, we want you to make sure you include PSC, FSC codes, and not just the NAICS codes in your registration in the assertion section. So if you have not done that, that's one of the things that PTAC strongly recommends. Within the framework of FSC codes and the relationship to national stock numbers.
Rich, can I interrupt a second?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to point out that SAM is an absolutely free registration. You do not have to pay for it.
That's a good point. Okay, I think, yeah, and that's why we're here. That's where we make our living, so to speak, from the standpoint of a lot of clients come to us first interested in SAM, and then they find out what else we do, and they like it and they get involved in. So again, the SAM registration is really a springboard into our program, and it's important to understand that. The national stock number, product base, and that really leads to DIBs, can be very overwhelming, okay? But I think, and again, this is where the understanding and the informal benefits of dealing with other clients, other PTAC clients or other companies involved in the process, not just the information you get from PTAC. Not also, you want to start right at the beginning and learn from the people at the small business centers, especially the one in Columbus, from the standpoint of understanding and where to go with this, program, so to speak. The CAGE code is a prerequisite to get in DIBs. And I think what's important about this is, and again, a machine shop, there's 2 million national stock numbers. Some they probably haven't used in 20 years. All right, so that's overwhelming. That's a lot more. You have to go in with a very narrow search, see where you match up with FSC, then see where that extends into the national stock number, okay? There's things you need to get involved in, certifications, to look at drawings. Price is gonna be the primary, product base, price base, okay? Very, service base, value, okay? I mean, that's, or solution based, one of those two, whatever it may be. But I think it's, understand you want to limit your search. You want to get small from the beginning. You want to get a narrow search, and also from the point of view, where do I fit? Where do I need help in understanding where I fit, okay? Their terminology is not going to be the same. As much as they're doing more with commercial items, the terminology, the federal government, is going to not always be the same what you're used to in the commercial side. So it's important to understand that. And then again, back to the state of Ohio real quick, the UNSPSC codes. Their requirement, if you go for their MBE, EDGE, WBE, or veteran-friendly contractor for the veteran program. We are, telling companies it's also important to have UNSPSC codes for the e-procurement, the Ohio Buys program that's being rolled out from the state of Ohio. And that's a great way to start with a small dollar contract through that program. What you need is invoice, again, experience, show that experience in that category. Update your codes if you are one of the certification members, recertification. Again, you want to extend what you're doing, especially if you're gaining skills in certain industries and certain requirements. And then NIGP is utilized a lot in other states, not in Ohio. But again, if you're dealing with different programs, if you're dealing with Ohio State University, they have their own codes in that program. You have to understand when you register and when you become interested in doing work at Ohio State. A lot of other state schools in Ohio use an e-procurement system, which is similar. And I know that Kent State University, in fact, uses the UNSPSC codes in their registration. Now, at some point, and we're hoping that more of the state universities would follow suit and utilize the UNSPSC codes. That would make it a lot easier, but we're not holding our breath on that. But again, what type of data mining you do? Where do you fit? Where do you want to look? Utilize the codes, understand their system, and see if there's a common thread there, especially when you're looking at small dollar contracts. So one of the things that we want you to do is, and when you're developing your research, is start to getting to be more resourceful and start understanding how you can publicize yourself, how you can determine what's a better fit for you. And hopefully we'll get to all this at the end. I have a few PDFs that I want to share. The one is the updated PSC codes from the October. If you don't have a copy of that, I'd be glad to share that. The DLA commodities, those again are the Federal Supply Code, 4-digit. That's very unique. 2, that DIBS, and 2, DLA, Defense Logistics Agency. They also, within that list, tell you what supply center those codes are predominantly bought at and who you need to do business with, whether it is Columbus, Richmond, or Philadelphia. So it's important to understand that. And also, again, where you fit within a standpoint of NAICS codes based on size. If you want to qualify for the women-owned small business program when it comes to socially disabled, economically disadvantaged, you have to go to their website and make sure you match up there. And then finally, we, as PTAC, we want you to be interested in our bid match service. That's the 3rd PDF. That service starts with the PSC first letter or the FSC first 2 numbers, which is the Federal Supply Group. Group is 2, code is 4. That is utilized, and again, the more you can drill down, the more you can be more specific after you have the initial setup. So you may start with the alpha PSC letter, and then after you get more involved, you're going to go to the 4-digit PSC code, which is again more specific and a better match for you.
I do want to jump in right there just to mention to folks that the PTAC match service is a great example of the importance of perseverance with this. You may do your initial PTAC match service, which again is free of charge through the PTAC program, and you may get no bids, or you may get hundreds of opportunities that you see. Please return to your PTAC counselors and clarify exactly what you have, so you can begin to see opportunities that are stronger matches to what you can offer. And this back and forth, this iterative, understanding to help not only the PTAC advisor understand your business better, but to help you understand as you actually see government opportunities become available, that you too begin to refine this. And that's a great example of how even just searching or having the opportunity to gain market intel for the government customer can help you really clarify the language of how the government describes what you offer, which is sometimes different than how the commercial marketplace may describe what you have to offer. But again, it's a great example of a valuable resource and an opportunity for you to have perseverance in refining what you offer. And then to confirm, Rich, the bid match service is SAM opportunities as well as others, correct?
Yes, the program that we use here in Ohio is a software company out of Texas, PT Assist, and it starts with 3,500 sites from across the country. Okay, so you have a nationwide, especially if you're product based, you want to look at nationwide. If you're service based, you may want to look just at Ohio or at the Great Lakes region, Ohio and the states that touch Ohio, so to speak. But however you set it up is up to you. There is set up as a Google keyword search and also the classification codes that we're emphasizing. So it's important to understand that a lot of times these codes drive the proposals, and in beta.sam.gov, they are including the PSC codes, that they list them there as the class code more and more. So when I see, and I've been tracking that for some of my companies, when they send me a contract they're interested in, first thing I do is look for that code, and I can add that code to their search list. And I do that on a regular basis since October, from the standpoint of, this is a good match. Okay, I got that number for you. And that's important to understand. But again, that is part of our service, part of the PTAC service that your tax dollars pays for. So it's prepaid, it's not an extra charge. And again, the common thread and through all this is using it to your advantage to help get information into your pipeline on a regular basis. So the beta.sam.gov, which is part of our program, and you may set up your own profile in that search, but the search also goes across the country and not just the federal procurement, which we think is valuable, especially as you try to develop your business development in your specialty.
Rick,
Yes.
we have a question.
Okay.
When you're doing your research, how do you cover all of the NAICS codes for a specific topic? For example, software development. How can you cover all the NAICS codes that include software development?
Well, again, because it's such a broad arena in something like that, you need to really focus on what part of it, what keywords are going to be more specific to what you want to do and what you think is your specialty, so to speak. The other thing that you want to do is also, again, look at the more refined keywords, so to speak. So within the framework of our bid proposal service, we think, and I think especially, that two-word combinations are the most general specific. I had a contractor a couple years ago get an award based on his keywords, information assurance. I had no idea what that was, but it had to do with cybersecurity training. Again, he was studying the government. He knew that was the buzzwords, one of the keywords. So if you want to do work with FEMA, go to their website and look at some of their keywords. If you want to do, again, based on your research, and you have to really start digging to where you want to do work, and we'll send you some of those sites in the coming slides. But the most important thing there is use their language in your search, okay? Use their language that you may get through emails, through a brief encounter, FaceTime, whatever it may be. Just take advantage of that. Again, go through your resources, go through people that have had success, and look for that. When I talk about FedMine, I'll give some examples on that too that I utilize with my clients. But again, NAICS are very broad, and you're going to have, I mean, let's say we have 80,000 contracting officers. Within that framework, they may use 6 or 7 different NAICS for the same type of program. Okay, the key words are important, and again, the agency that you're dealing with is more important too. I hope that answers the question. I want to move on. This has to do with the again, the DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, the procurement side of DoD. This is where the NSN, the 13-digit, is utilized. There's a breakdown as far as, again, trying to give you a little bit of the understanding. So you have the Federal Supply Code start, in this example, electric lamp. Where is it? Country of origin, usually USA, and then the unique number that follows. On the bottom, I talked about the DLA capture management, and the big change in 2021 was, and this is DLA's language. I didn't know what this meant until a month ago. Whole of government means that DLA, DoD branch, is doing more proposals for non-military branches. Okay, so whole of government is, in this case, really being utilized a lot by Veteran Affairs, by FEMA, especially during the pandemic. It's more from the standpoint of category management, not capture management. Okay, from the standpoint of reduced duplication. All right, it's really data-driven, independent review. Independent because it's automation. Okay, DIBS is automated. You may never get to talk to a buyer. You may not even see a buyer. Okay, there may not even be a listed buyer on the proposal. Okay, but the important thing here is their definition within the category management, within what they're doing. Best in class has to deal with the type of contract, not the supplier. They're dealing with fewer contracts for that same supplier by running out the same proposal. And these are small dollar. Majority of them are under 5,000. Okay, and again, a great way to start. Not just manufacturing, but you're seeing more distributors go after this because some of these items are commercial items. Okay, and I have contractors that have jumped on some of this. But again, understand the level of automation through DLA, okay, has increased dramatically over the last couple of years. In 2016, they did 30 billion in automated bids. By 2018, they duplicated that 50%. They went to 45 billion, and it's increasing as we speak. And again, more and more non-military are utilizing this service. That to me tells me that, hey, if you're a distributor, this may be a good thing to look at. Start looking at the federal supply codes as it relates to DIBS. Our next slide really is an important thing, to summarize some of the things that we looked at with the classification codes.
So I'll hop in here. So I was trying to think of a metaphor that would help kind of capture the sometimes obscure and complex world of this government contracting. So I recently had to go through my e-check to register my car again. And I was thinking about folks' experience with driving and its relationship to registering your car on the Bureau of Motor Vehicles and so forth. And recognize that, well, it is a hassle, to be honest. And we've seen a lot of criticisms and so forth of that process, but it is something that I find that I do every year. And even when it's not, doesn't pass and the extra work partly because I see the value of driving the car more important than sort of the hassle of continuing the registration and so forth. But what was interesting is that I did have the experience of having an auto mechanic that not only helped address an issue, but also helped take the vehicle to recheck it for the e-check. And that was a really helpful experience. And that, I think, is the value of PTAC in particular, is having someone that knows the system as an ally is critical for your success with this. But fundamentally, as I thought about this from a business perspective, I don't hear people say that they are not going to drive because of the hassle of registering their vehicles. Similarly, even though there can be a hassle to registering with SAM and the other systems that you may encounter, please keep in mind that that should not in any way diminish your commitment to the strategy of your business development. And that's fundamentally what we can help with on the Small Business Development Center side, is understanding your business plan in general and where government contracting can fit in with this. And that kind of, I don't know if that metaphor is helpful, but I was reflecting on that as an example to help make the distinction between what the registration process is about and what the function of your business and your direction with doing that can be. So that there are situations that we experience where, while there are some challenges with the government registration process, should not diminish our capability to deliver value to the government. But fundamentally, the goal is to search smart as you begin this process in order to accelerate the opportunities that would come to you, as well as the ones that you can potentially win. We've reiterated a few times about the PTAC bid match and other help. I strongly also suggest doing research on the awards. Who is getting the awards in the arenas that you're interested in or you have lost? And also find out from your competitors if they're registered with the government to get contracts. I believe PTAC can also assist you in understanding what contracts your competitors have successfully bid on. And that can give you a sense of, again, what agencies are looking for what you have to offer, as well as how your competitor is positioning themselves to the government. Keep tabs on some agencies. When the question came in about NAICS codes, there is the concern that there's a lot of agencies and a lot of NAICS codes. The U.S. government is one of the largest purchasers of services and products in the world, and there are a variety of agencies and departments and so forth. So start off with a few that you may have connections to, you may have interest in, and sort of walk those through. There will be no shortage of opportunities, and PTAC can help define what those are. I would say also find out who you know, online, in person, professional networks, personal connections, who has some role in government, and begin talking to them about how their agency purchases things. Even if it's not an agency you were thinking of targeting, just so you understand what the process is. And you may be surprised at how different it is even in similar programs. But it's likely that you already know contacts potentially in the specific agency that you want to purchase from. And when you think about people you want to understand both technical experts, the project scientists or the managers of the programs, as well as contract experts, people on the government side who are managing the contracting. Walking your neighborhood. So with the lens of this training and other trainings like this, we'd like you to look at the folks that you work with currently. You may not have had the conversation about, how do you do government work? Are there ways that we could partner on that? And we say, we present this as walking the neighborhood, that you don't have to collect everything. You don't have to go to see all the opportunities that are offered for all these things. You can begin with a few that you are close to help you recognize some paths that you already have relationships with. Again, research, resources, and relationships is what we're trying to convey. And the metaphor of the neighborhood, the businesses you deal with and agencies you may be familiar with can be as good a starting point as trying to figure this out from a distance of what someone in another state would want to buy. Finally, there are many ways to begin this adventure, many ways to start the race, as it were. Please explore your local government, other public sector entities, school districts, county governments, townships that you're close to. All the public sector buys things. They may buy them in very unique ways. You may have to register a few times with different systems, but there are many different ways you can begin building the experience of providing your services to the government. And these can also build your reputation and your capabilities. I believe there is other training I recommend about capability statements that the PTACs provide, because the capability statement is often the government, your specific marketing material to the government. It's a little unique from other marketing materials you may have, but it's as vital. And building your experience, even with local government, even as other public sector, helps a federal buyer see that you recognize the unique aspects of public sector work. Not the least of which, from a business planning point of view, is cash flow. How the government pays you for the work you provide is different often than how the commercial sector may pay for it. And you need to understand that in terms of your capability to deliver on the contract. Because winning a contract and failing to deliver can have a negative impact on your reputation for future contracts. And as a business owner, you need to recognize that the cash flow situation may be different, and it still is vital for you to ensure you can deliver on the contract, even when the payment may not come through for some time. And then finally, pump the primes. Again, using the metaphor of cars and racing. Prime contractors are large companies that have government contracts, and they often have small business requirements that they have to fulfill. You can help them win potentially. And start again. Who do you know who would work for a major prime, and who wins awards in the field that you're in, even if they are large businesses that you like? Either you admire the work that they do, you have a professional or personal connection to them, or they seem to be leaders in the field that your ability to subcontract with them, even for a small amount, allows you to claim participation in one of their contracts and so forth. So fundamentally, there are no guarantees that you can win any particular contract, but the idea is that the more expertise you have, the more opportunities will come your way, and the more effective you will be at winning this race to successful procurement. Next slide.
So a lot of the research we focused on so far has really been identifying your classification codes. We now want to really start diving into where to look, okay? And these two websites, I think, are ideal because of their the importance that they give and the emphasis they have for the small business, okay? The small business liaisons, and they're identified on both of these sites, and also some of the information that's listed below on the slide. But again, it's important to think small. Think of going after the agency and understanding, again, your NAICS code, classification codes, PSC, FSC, have that information ready to start that discussion. And then that liaison can help, hopefully, give you an idea of where you fit in their agency. And also, again, with their help, maybe make you more visible. I think that's important to understand. You're dealing a very competitive selection process. You're talking to people. The small business liaison, they're going to be the small business advocate, just like you have at the SBA, you have at SBDC and PTAC. These people are very much in tune trying to make sure the small business gets heard and gets a chance. And so you want to get a relationship there, and hopefully they point you in the right direction. And they may say, hey, you're not a good fit, go here. Again, that's an important thing to start with and go with. We've been talking a lot about the subcontracting.
Rich,
Yes, sir.
I just want to hop in and make a point about the last thing on the previous slide about COVID-19 related resources. And just to say that we recognize a lot of business have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are specific procurement opportunities that have become available to companies who can provide those services that have specific advantages for responding, but also to just let folks know that there are government programs that are available. You may have heard of the PPP and EIDL and so forth that are coming available. And part of the work that the SBDCs are gearing up to do and are helping a lot of companies with are accessing those programs as well. Keep in mind that as our economy hopefully recovers from this pandemic, that there can be as much a challenge to growth as there is to the impact of when the pandemic initially hit. So part of recognizing your success as a business in general and with these opportunities is to be able to plan that you can successfully survive a period of growth as well as survive a period of struggle. So I just want to, seeing that on the slide, remind me to not only emphasize to the attendees today about the COVID-19 specific opportunities that are still available, but also to acknowledge that the impact of the pandemic and the recovery from the pandemic are factors that are important not only in your procurement, government contracting opportunity development, but your business development in general. And that's where programs like the SBDCs and the PTACs can help with that too.
So again, the small business subcontracting route, this is an excellent website. This subnet is also part of the PTAC BidServe service. And again, take advantage of it, look at it, even from the standpoint of learning where you belong and what opportunities and what teaming is going on out there. The GSA, General Service Administration, has a schedule, and actually they have more than one. It's one of the contract vehicles that we'll be referencing very shortly. It's a great resource tool too to understand and see who's having success out there, what pricing, what type of format do they use in their job descriptions, et cetera, et cetera. And again, another major point, and this is 49, 50, 52%, whatever what number you want to use. That is half, okay? Half of federal procurement is done through contract vehicles, not open solicitations. Also keep in mind that there are so many companies on the GSA schedule, again, 30, 40%, whatever number you like, but somewhere in that framework, they do $0. So even within the GSA, you're dealing with competition against prime contractors, against companies that are larger than you that have leverage. But again, start there as a research tool, and then you may end up going after it, especially you advance in your pipeline, especially if the feedback you're getting is, hey, we'd buy from you if you're on the schedule. But again, a great research tool and another service that when you need to look at it strongly, we can help you. If you want to go through the proposal process, we have staff that has that experience, and don't go out and hire someone, because the most critical information is your information, your business, your pricing, and that's going to take your work.
Rich,
yes, ma'am.
do you have any suggestions on how to get responses from primes?
Not really. I mean, to be honest with you, that is something that is very difficult.
Yeah.
they are involved in some of our programs, the matchmakers. And I think Todd can touch on this because Todd used to work for a couple of larger contractors, Meggitt being one of them. But again, part of it is FaceTime, look for their small business liaison as a starting point.
Thank you.
Todd, can you give us a quick comment?
Yes, I would also suggest, I mean, it may be a challenge in the age of a lot of these virtual meetings, but there are sometimes opportunities to meet primes at trade show or specific events that the government is sponsoring around, or specific agencies. Oftentimes prime contractors will be exhibitors at these events and so forth. Sometimes they're just salespeople there, but sometimes they do have folks that can either help with the small business side or put you in contact with folks. Again, it's also valuable to check with your networks via the online resources such as LinkedIn or other connection resources you have to see if you know someone who is in any capacity at a company that you're trying to reach out to, because sometimes they can introduce you internally more effectively than sort of knocking on the door. And finally, I would suggest that there, in some instances, for example, with SBIR opportunities, there are some companies that you can sign up to that will actually send out interest to small businesses seeking specific SBIR topics, because it's in the interest of the primes, again, to build their network of small businesses. But basically, if there's an opportunity you have where you see an event where a representative of prime is speaking, or if you see, even if it's online, sign up and be able to reach out to them afterwards from that experience of saying like, hey, thank you for providing that type of thing. The more you collect contacts at the primes you're interested in, hopefully the more likely they will be to respond to your inquiry, or again, help you build the relationship to get to the right person. Does that make sense?
I think it does. And one last point about, going after primes. Excuse me. We talked earlier about persistence and patience, and persistence times 10 when you're going after a prime. I mean, I think that, and you're going to have times where people will not talk to you, contracting officers, et cetera. You're going to get the same thing from most primes. But again, make sure you have something of value to add, have a good understanding, as Todd mentioned, and also, stay with it. There are certain development type of frameworks that they look for. Be ready for that. We have been getting, and I say we, PTAC, we've been getting some VA requests that they are working with primes looking to beef up their small business in certain NAICS categories, and I share those with my clients. We're getting more and more information like that. That's an ideal introduction. They are looking for, again, certain NAICS, certain industry codes, and they're going to select who they want. Part of the selection is also being narrowed down from the standpoint of cybersecurity. Primes are very concerned about their information being stolen, hacked from, not so much from their protection from their firewall, but from small companies that they do business with. So that is also keeping them hands away from adding new people into their pipeline. So please keep all that in mind. But again, FaceTime, small business liaisons are important.
One last thing I'll mention is that there are some consortia, whether through the National Network for Manufacturing Innovation Centers or through different consortia that help support other transaction authority agreements. And sorry for the alphabet soup, but if you're on a webinar about consortia, also have prime contractors often are members of specific ones. So you may want to do some research to see if a prime you are interested in is a member of a group like that. Sometimes they themselves issue RFPs, or they help support different kinds of projects, but that's one other mechanism by which you can find points of contact at primes that are in a space to connected to government procurement.
So research for resources. I skipped a couple slides. I skipped Beta SAM and I skipped FPDS. Again, FPDS is a great research tool, but it is one of 14 federal procurement tools plugged into FedMine. And again, this tool, your tax dollars pays for the PTAC specialists to utilize. I use it on a regular basis. Here are some of the key ways that I use it. Contracting officers by agency and by, again, no longer by NAICS, but by PSC codes. We can set aside for small business. We can set aside for certain socioeconomic categories. We can set aside for SAT, which is Simplified Acquisition Threshold. We looked at competitors, and by looking at the transactions history, we can see very descriptive what the award was for. And I hope to get to an example of that when I share some examples at the end. I also have a short FedMine video I'd like to share. Haystack is a tool we use for the NSNs, price, drawings, and forecasting. And then finally, we have Govology webinars that I think are outstanding. We have a code so that you do not have to pay the $75 if you're a PTAC client. And we utilize that. We get a monthly list from them that we share with our clients. Here's very quickly the small business goals, government with the various socioeconomic categories. And again, simplified acquisition threshold, if you're not familiar, is expenditures under $250,000. That again is set aside for a small business. Simplified acquisition means they can go through a quick process, more like a commercial, give me a quote or give me your best value, and we're going with it. And so again, stay small, fitness, look for those opportunities, and we can help direct you to that framework. Excellent way to start without past performance. Contracts, especially contracts under 100,000, especially SAT driven. I see more and more in that. In fact, SAT is the simplified acquisition is the only category that has shown increase, okay, over the different vehicles, over the different ways of doing federal contracting. That has the highest increase, highest percentage over the last 3 years. Important to understand that. Within FedMine, we get, again, basic general framework. This is a report that I share with some of my clients. I did women-owned small business set aside for fiscal year 20. Those were the 3 leading NAICS, okay? The third one being laundry equipment. Don't ask me why, it was just there. And then also the agencies that do the most women-owned small business set-asides, and you can see the dollar amount there. So DOD, Health and Human Services, GSA, those 3, again, if you're a woman-owned, you can lead, find partners with past performance, or if you're looking for something in that category, look for a woman-owned small business partner and team up. Within the framework of state agencies, state understanding, the Ohio Checkbook is a great resource to see who has won awards and what expenditures the agencies use. I look at the MBE publications. If you go to the Ohio MBE site and you get publications at the very bottom of the page, you can see what agencies spend on professional services. And there's a good description over the last couple of years what they do. So when you want to talk to someone at the agency, you can ask them, hey, I see, you utilize your money, your expenditures for professional services and consulting for supplier diversity, whatever it may be. You can leave with that information because you did some of that homework, again, at the state level. Our next slide talks a lot about the business development cycle that's important to understand as you go through the process.
So this is just an overview of, again, this is from the Association of Proposal Management Professionals body of knowledge. But just briefly, you can see it outlines the phases of capture management from initially identifying the markets through how you would plan to do your efforts with this, to how you would actually assess your capabilities to capture, to how you would plan that capture, to how you would plan to do specific proposals, developing the proposal at the point that the customer, government customer wants to negotiate, and then finally how you deliver the products and services. As a small business advisor, one thing that I draw your attention to is on the major outputs from the first step, market identification, is the input of your strategic plan. What you want to accomplish as a business is critical for honing your capture management strategy. So while we're very much in the weeds on these specific codes and that type of thing, keep in mind your broad business goal needs to be supported by this capture plan that you would develop. It does not serve you well to be chasing opportunities ad hoc without a sense of how it fits into what you want to accomplish in your business. And yes, it is some extra work, but again, as you look at this government contracting, and this approach you can see also relates to commercial opportunities, but there will be some unique aspects of how you assess the opportunities and develop the proposals. But we want to present this to you to show you a model, one model for how you can see moving from identifying the specific markets all the way through delivering the service. There are ways you can break this out into phases that will help you plan the amount of energy and effort you want to devote. And in next week's session, you will see how each one of these phases can be an example where you would make the go, no-go decisions. So it's not only deciding a particular contract to go, no-go, but you may also have go, no-go decisions about customers and markets even. So, but I wanted to present this in the context of understanding your business plan, which is something small business development centers can help with, is critical for the initial framework in how you frame your capture management strategy.
So again, here, your pipeline viewpoint, okay, from the standpoint of what you're looking at. You're assessing, the capacity, your current schedule, what's coming up. You're a small business, so you're going to target industry days, sources sought, request for information. And again, through FedMine, I send my clients history of sources sought. And then you're thinking, oh, the opportunities are already gone. It's also an opportunity that it's in their framework, in that industry, in that contracting officer location, that at some point they had a need and they had a request. Maybe they didn't find enough small business. Maybe they didn't find enough in the socioeconomic category. That's, it's a question, it's a follow-up. It's a good way to see, hey, I know in the past you've looked at this. So keep that in mind. Your knowledge and your relationships, part of it is you want to keep track of it. Customer relations management. There are some free out there. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to pop in quickly to say that in this age of the pandemic, I have seen industry days operating virtually. So please take advantage of participating, even in ones that may be of general interest. That now there is some more openness to doing some of these virtually, and I wanted to confirm you've seen that as well, that there's more virtual opportunities to engage as well.
And that, yes, we have seen that, and I alluded to earlier about the VA working with some primes. Those were virtual industry days. Also from the standpoint of what I do within FedMind, I search for those and I share those with my clients based on the NAICS and based on my clients that I'm familiar with. Contract vehicles, very important, as I mentioned earlier, 50%. That is something, as you develop your pipeline, as you develop your understanding and relationships with contracting officers, where you fit, okay? That's when you look at that stronger. And I think it's important to understand that, and also from what you have and what you're involved in. Your past performance is very critical, and especially the CPAR's track record. That is something that is requested and stronger identified in proposals and in some of these vehicles. And you have to make sure that you're monitoring that and that it's a good score. And you want to make sure, if again, if you're a subcontractor, you want to have it recognized in that framework. So we want you to be well aware of that also. The vehicles, these are some of the vehicles. Yes.
Could you speak a little bit more on how best to identify likely competitors?
I'll show a little bit of that when we get into the FedMind, if I get to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So these are some of the strong contract vehicles that I want you to be aware of. IDIQs, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. A lot of that is agency specific. FSC, the GWACs, government-wide agency contracts. Again, this is, and there's other examples throughout this page, and I threw in some of the state and local ones, state of Ohio, state term schedule, IUCPG, special programs, Ability One, where a majority of, I think it's 60% of the assembly has to be from handicapped people, et cetera, et cetera. But all of those type of programs are something to consider as you move up your pipeline, as you move into development in that federal procurement. And again, we don't want you to start there, but as you get an understanding of where you fit and hopefully get some traction, this is a great place to go. But once you go on a contract vehicle, you're basically all in. I mean, you're probably gonna have to duplicate the amount of time if you want to have success. And you can talk, I'm getting this information from a lot of my clients, and Todd worked for a company that was on the GSA schedule. I think it's important to understand that that is a strong commitment to the vehicle program, a strong commitment to federal procurement. And we may have lost Todd, so I'm going to move on.
I'm still here.
Oh, good. You want to talk about some of your GSA experiences, or?
I could briefly, but I do recognize we are in the interest of time. I'll just briefly mention that working for companies on schedules mean that sometimes these opportunities are coming through continuously, and it can still be a challenge even for companies on these schedules to approach every single opportunity. So they often partner with distributors or small businesses to help them keep on top of these opportunities. So you yourself as a company can support GSA schedule holders as subcontractors as well. And they also tend to have business beyond the GSA schedule. So you can use the kind of research tools to understand what the companies are. And then one perspective on this is that a relationship with that company can also mean a relationship beyond that particular schedule. So I'd offer that perspective again about how these tools help you with developing these opportunities beyond the specific schedule or the specific government contracts. Yeah.
Oh, did I? Okay, I'm good. All right, sorry. All right, so this capability statement again, part of our PTAC training, company resume. We think it's, very important to have this from the standpoint of to introduce yourself. It may be a requirement for a sources sought. Again, this is where you really have to be able to define yourself and use their language, and where do you match up. Again, this may even be the way you introduce yourself to a prime. But the thing that's, it's a constant upgrade, constant living document. And in my opinion, this is just, again, my opinion, the C and D, the references, your past performance, make it recent and relevant. And then how do you separate yourself? What's your brand? How are you different from your competitors? But again, this is what we stress. It's a great training tool. I like to get my clients to send me their capability statement so I can help them in their pipeline, help them get resources, help them get potential teaming partners. That is not something that, I nudge them, and it's up to them to agree. But I think it's a great way to introduce yourself. People from contracting officers to other companies are all busy. They do not read, they scan. And again, so this is a scan document. And we think also that you should emphasize what you can do under 250,000 under that set aside / simplified acquisition threshold. You're using your resources and your research to get to those relationships. Those are the 3 R's. You're staying small. You want to stay within your expertise. We haven't mentioned dynamic small business search. That is part of, that's your capability statement online. That is something you populate during your SAM registration. We can help you with that, but you never know what contracting officers may be looking for, prime contractors may be looking for. That is a search engine that's free. You want to make sure your information is there. And I don't want to go without mentioning the matchmaking events. We're doing those mainly virtual. We do one annually in Dayton, Cleveland, and with the help of our YSU PTAC, Joey Scott, we're starting to develop one with the state of PA and New York. It's a 3-way state, which includes federal, primes, and state agencies, which is a great way to introduce yourself and understand how they do business. And the #1 document you want for the matchmaker is your capability statement. This slide is, again, Develop Ohio is a great resource tool. This particular posting explains that Ohio has been doing more economic development per person than anyone else. And I think it's important to understand that all this activity going on in Ohio is an opportunity for someone. And so it may not be something for you directly, but that's what you share with your resources. That's what you share with your relationships. It takes what, 30 seconds to forward these blasts. And again, you're just, part of your CRM is keeping in touch with your resources, keeping in touch with people that are potential teaming partners, people in your industry, or people that you look for advice. You want to keep that relationship active, and this is a great way to do that. I get these announcements, and I don't hesitate to share with my colleagues and some of my companies that I know would find the announcement as information in their market, in their pipeline. Staying small, another place to look. Very small micro purchases, okay, under 10,000. During the pandemic, it went up to 20,000. Simplified acquisition, we mentioned that earlier, especially from the standpoint of contracts under 250,000. They're utilized because they can reduce administrative costs, and they're improving the opportunities for small and the socioeconomic firms. Here we have a lot of the Ohio links that I want to share with you. During the stimulus money being released, a lot of my construction and engineering firms especially are getting a lot of work. Why? They already had good relationships in local government, relationships with county officials, relationships with, and knowing what projects are in, in their priorities, okay? Because that's where a lot of stimulus money is going. So again, take advantage and keep that in mind, that you want to have those relationships and those understandings throughout, federal, state, and local governments. Here's some information. I mentioned earlier the ethics from the NAEP. There's their website. They also have their own price agreements, E&I cooperative, and you can take a look at that. And there is some NIGP codes utilized in both other states and also when I say state procurement professionals, and also from some of the cooperative agreements and some of the NAEP universities and colleges outside of Ohio that are listed there. They all do virtual, or they all do conferences that you may be interested in. One of my clients, who is predominantly in the college market, they interfaced with an e-procurement system in Ohio, and they used that past performance to go to the NAEP, and they've gotten some national contracts across the nation, other public universities that use that same e-procurement system, okay? They very simply followed that pipeline that they created, where they added value, and they extended it from Ohio to a nationwide program with some very large universities, okay? That takes time and effort. It takes 7 years to build your business. 7 years. I mean, that's statistics. It takes the same amount of time to build your pipeline. Please keep that in mind. And then here's some more quick information that I want to get through. We're going a little bit condensed because I want to get to some of the other slides. But this is, again, why the state procurement is more important, less competition. And again, once you get some past performance, it's easier to get past performance in other states with similar programs, similar statewide programs, similar university programs. Not that hard to figure out. So at this point, I think we want to wrap it up. And Todd, maybe you could do a little bit of the summary here.
Sure. Thank you, Rich. So mainly, at the end of the day, your goal is to sell your most excellent business performance, whether you're selling products or services, or your past experience with different government agencies and so forth. You want to align how you capture this government contracting business with your plan for success in your business, and your plan for continued success in managing your growth. So you want to know your success, as we talked about, what successes you've had in the past in general, and in particular with any government contracts, and your future, how you would define success in the future. Winning a contract is one way, but gaining familiarity and comfort with the government contracting purpose and process, I should say, and procedures is important. Building your pipeline. And this means not only your pipeline of potential customers, but your capabilities, the teams that you want to pull together, your internal staffing resources that can help you more effectively identify and respond to opportunities and build these relationships. Understanding your capability, what you offer, and how the government describes what you offer, whether it's the different codes that Rich has identified, PSC, et cetera, as well as the language, the words that they choose around what you offer. And then understanding your capacity, how much you can do, both in terms of how much you can identify, how much government contracting and the government customer is going to be part of your overall business plan, but also how much you can realistically accomplish. You want to deliver proposals that not only meet the requirements for that specific proposal, and if that means 1-inch margins, 15 pages, Arial, Times New Roman 12-point font, then your proposal needs to be in that. But also how much you can do in terms of how much you want to keep responding to opportunities or how many events you want to attend. Understanding your capacity is critical because, again, understanding your capacity will be important when you win because you want to be certain you can deliver on the promise that you're making to the government. Finally, collaboration. Who can help? What other resources you have available internally in your company, externally with colleagues who have experience, contacts with primes and so forth, and fundamentally, the resources you are hearing today. Your PTACs, your SBDCs, the Small Business Administration, programs like SCORE. There are a number of entities out there. We realize it's kind of complicated sometimes from your perspective. Our goal with these webinars is to help you understand what these resources are from a starting point to help you risk responsibly. There's a risk. You may not win. You may expend time that is not as productive as you'd like it to be. Our goal is that you identify these risks and take these opportunities responsibly. So you do not risk your entire business on these, but you're more comfortable with balancing what you want to accomplish with your business with what you hope to achieve with government contracting and capturing that, capturing those government contracting opportunities responsibly to secure not only your future success as your business, but also, frankly, the future of all of us as taxpayers and as a society that depends on our government to provide the most cost-effective and responsible solutions to the challenges we face.
Okay, and finally, here's, oh, wait a minute. That's my information. Again, we'll make these slides available. And again, at our Ohio EDU PTAC site, you can register there if you're not a client. If you're not in our 62 counties, we can direct you to the correct office. And regardless if you're a client or in our jurisdiction, we want you to visit our site for the training videos, link, recordings, especially what Billy did last week on capture management. And there's Todd's information. Again, I want to thank Todd for giving up his time to be part of this program. I know he's very busy with his own business and working with SBDC, but he has a passion for this capture management pipeline, and I knew he'd be a great resource tool for our Ohio small business. So I want to get to very quickly some of the FedMine information, and we might go past 12 o'clock. I hope you stay with us if you can. This slide is a FedMine report I ran a couple years ago. I wanted to show this from the standpoint of, it's very descriptive. You know, it was for one of my clients, and I went back a few years because I didn't really want to get, hopefully you won't figure out who it's for. But the point I'm trying to make is, we recommend that you use FPDS within the framework of beta.sam, but we want to utilize PTAC's research tools so you can spend less time acquiring data. This is a little bit stronger information. This gives you what location in the Air Force. It gives you a good contract description. I like to look at these contract descriptions for my clients to help develop more keywords. Okay, so from the NAICS code and from different things that we look at, PSC codes, and then get to the contract detail. Hey, they're using these keywords. Let's use the same keywords. And then we, again, get more information in the detail. I don't want to belabor that point. This is something about, again, this is something that I think is very important, the CPARs that I have on file. If you're interested in that, let me know. Another nice report from FedMine. This is who, and this is updated all the time, small mentor protege companies. Again, you can see some of the current ones out there, when they were approved, what NAICS codes, what socioeconomic categories, where are they located, good basic information, and we can run information. If you're looking into doing something like that, see if they had success, and see if they're in your industry and where they've had success. This is a example of the category management that I have on file. If you're interested in more about that, I think it really does apply to the DIBs and to the DLA and what they're trying to do. This is the federal supply group that we use in our PT Assist. Again, PSC codes, alpha start, alpha base, services, product base, numeric. These are the FSC groups, I'm sorry, federal supply groups, FSG, that we start with, or we can go to the 4-digit commodity. And this also, again, I can share this with you if you're interested. And then it also tells you what supply center, if you are looking at a specific category, where that comes from. Good place to start. This is the new PSC codes from October. The changes, especially the alpha base, are more specific. And then you can see, again, basic things. This has a lot to do with research and development, but it's out there. And I'm going to close with this short YouTube video. You can see a lot of Cleveland Brown stuff on the right. Sorry, that's what I usually watch on YouTube. But this is from Lindsay Carey, our FedMine rep, that again, I need information. I can't find it for my client. I just say, hey, Lindsay, I need a little help here, and I get it instantly. But I asked her to do a little short video for our program today, so you have a good understanding of what can go into federal searching.
So for the pipeline, first of all, you would need to have a
Rich, could you expand your screen and turn your volume up?
so
Okay, excuse me for doing this, but I gotta get to my taskbar to turn up my volume. Okay.
and all of our commercial customers use this. They have email alerts set up and they're adding things to their pipeline based on those alerts. So I'm going to do all solicitation documents that are open, meaning they haven't passed their response date. You could, of course, just look for opportunities that are going to be based in Ohio and surrounding states. So I'm just going to click Ohio. You could search opportunities by keywords, by NAICS codes, by a combination of the two, by federal agency, and set aside. So those are all the different type of filters that you could use to set up a search, and you can set up as many of these as you want. Right now, I'm just going to look for open opportunities with Place Performance Ohio, just for kind of our sample exercise here. And then I can show you how to add to the pipeline. I think it's running. Let me try to open up a new browser. Sometimes the Zoom and Chrome don't really get along. Or there's just a lot of.
Should we have been more specific?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, or there's just a lot of opportunities in Place Performance Ohio. We have to overzealous there. There we go. There's 90. Yeah, there's 90 open opportunities. So saving the search is what generates those email notifications when new things meet this criteria. And then the user would open up their alert and they would review them. And they would say, okay, this musician support services, they click on it and it would bring them into this point in FedMine where they would review the description, the documents, and then you'll see this button here for them to add to pipeline. Okay, so I'm gonna add a few more so you can see how that pipeline would work. We'll do this leadership training certificate and project management support. Okay, so you can add them just directly from the platform, or you can get your email alert and add it from there. So I mentioned earlier, not only can you add, new solicitations and sources sought, any type of record that's on beta.sam, but you can also add expiring contracts. So I'm going to use our opportunity search, which is also here under federal opportunities. And this search is looking at contracts that are coming up for expiration, and you can add those to your. So I'm going to look at contracts that are expiring in the next 12 months. And we'll do the same thing with a place of performance, Ohio. I might add a NAICS code onto this one. So Ohio.
Oh, I was going to say the same exact same code. That's funny.
That's kind of my go-to. The 541 and 511. Hope this one will work. Just to be safe, I'm going to use my other screen. In the Bari. There we go. This shows me that there are 995 total actions. So those are just total actions based on a contract that are expiring in 12 months under that NAICS where the place of performance is Ohio. So there's only 7 companies, or rather 7 contracts that are expiring, because it kind of rolls up their contract actions. You can do the duration to date, the ultimate completion date, and then you can also expand this plus sign. So if the original solicitation was public, so if it came out publicly and wasn't on a contract vehicle or a sole source, you'll see that linked as well, which is really helpful to be able to access that previous performance work statement or statement of work if it were to be recompeted. So we're not necessarily saying these are all going to be recompeted, but generally if they're IDV contracts, there's going to be a need. And so it's either get in touch with the incumbent or get in touch with the contracting officer.
Okay, I want to stop there. And I think that, again, that was one of the main points that I wanted to share today, was with that FedMine tool. And, I utilize that for my clients. And I also look at, I have in my pipeline, I have some basic things. I mentioned industry days. I have contracts that are VA in Ohio, because I have a lot of interest there. And I look at CSO and OTA, CSOs, commercial special offering, other transaction authority, because those are more in line with what's available, what is utilized with less of a solicitation process. They want to push that commercial offering through quicker. And so I target that. And again, on request, and you can drill down and see what's available, the detail of the contracts, the expiring contracts. There were 7 main contractors in Ohio to look at. And then we can look at the past of the solicitation, the original solicitation number before it expires. It's a lot harder to get that information afterwards. So we want to get it before the expiration date. If you have the number, you can look later, but it's still hard, is what I'm saying. So you have to really understand how that system works. And I wanted to share that because I think it's a great tool, and it extends what, again, what a person has to do on their own. So you're spending less time. You kind of flip that, let me acquire data time. You want to flip it a little bit, let PTAC do some of that so that you can use that time to, insight and look for direction. And so I hope it makes sense, and I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much, Rich and Todd. Wonderful presentation, great information, a lot of information. I know we had some great questions that were coming through, and people were saying it's a lot of information, and had a lot of great questions. But for those of you that are new to government contracting, definitely follow up with the PTACs to get more engaged. to find out more about, as they said, doing the research, getting connected to the resources, and then developing those relationships. I did want to also point out with the SBDCs, so if you are, as a small business, PTAC is more specific, a resource to help you along your journey with government contracting, and then the SBDCs is more related to business, anything related to your business, you growing and expanding your business. It's just great that Todd has a specific certification that assists in capture management. I did want to point out with that industry certification, I think it was the APMP, that's more of a, just to clarify, that's more of an industry certification, if you will, as it relates to compared to the government contracting certifications, the socioeconomic, your 8A, your woman-owned, your hub zone. And somebody was asking about those, but you can follow up with your PTAC counselor or Jill or myself, and we can give you information. We do have trainings on those, but that's more of industry specific to help you to find, or to help you along with your proposal preparation, development, your research, what have you. But I think the most important thing I learned from this as a small business, you want all of these resources, information, the research and tools, it's so that you can understand your customer. The more you can understand your customer, the more you can create and customize your strategy on how you're going to approach and submitting your proposal, how you're going to propose, how you're going to prepare your marketing to an agency as it relates to an opportunity. So if you can kind of keep that in mind, please do follow up with the PTACs. They have that FedMind as a resource. They can work with you to find information, to look for specific opportunities, to research them, even if it's previous awards. So they can definitely work with you. Another thing somebody mentioned about the matchmaking event. I know Rich and Todd are both up in the Cleveland area. For those that are in, I'm in Columbus. So with the Columbus District Office, we cover 60 of Ohio's counties, Midwest and Southern, Midwest, Middle and Southern. So if you're used to going to the Dayton PTAC, the Dayton matchmaking event, we, as it relates to COVID, will probably be doing it virtual again this year in November. So be on the lookout. We'll be sending more information about those. And prior to the matchmaking, we will have trainings leading up to the matchmaking event. I think that's about it. I don't see any additional questions. And again, I want to also emphasize, because I know there are, I'm sure we have a variety of individuals that are on here, nascent companies that are just starting, companies that have been in business maybe 1 or 2 years, mid-sized companies, more developed companies. I think Rich said something really important. It takes 7 years to build your business. So a lot of times companies that are getting their certifications, especially those that may want to get 8A, they may have been in business, but it takes 7 years to build your business. And he said probably even another 7 years to build your pipeline. So it just takes time. So don't get frustrated. I think all of the information they presented today, capture management is both, I think, an art and a science. You don't need capture management in order to find a government opportunity. You don't have to have somebody that has that expertise. Does it help? Yes. But start with where you are with what you have. Go after small opportunities, learn information, and then as you grow, I think it would probably be more ideal. I work with companies that go after larger dollar size contracts, 15 million, 60 million on up. So as you're starting to grow your portfolio, you're going after larger contracts, you're going after more competitive contract vehicles, you may want to invest in getting someone that has that background and doing capture management. And maybe somebody that has that certification, and there will be a fee for that. But with the type of contracts that you're going after, it would be a worthwhile investment. But again, the PTACs are always there to serve as a great resource to you. So again, we want to thank everyone. The next training will be next Thursday, and then we will close out this series on capture management, and it will be on go or no go. So after you've done all of the information and all of the steps that Todd and Rich gave you today, and you follow all that information, you do your research, then what do you do to go or not to go, to bid or not to bid on an opportunity? That's what we'll be focusing on next Thursday. We'll actually have an 8A firm, Teresa McAlloy from McAlogic, that will be presenting. Capture management was her background. So you want to stay tuned for that next Thursday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And then we'll have some great trainings next month. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Today's session was recorded. We will be sending out the link to the recording as well as the slides as well. So if you weren't able to stay for the entire session, we'll be sending those out. And then also last week's recording is also on the website, as well as other trainings that PTAC has been doing, and I think all of our government contracting trainings are on there as well. I think that may be it. Is the link for, yes, the link for last week's session is on there. It's on the 3rd page. And I think we can probably send that out when we send out the information. We can send out the link for last week's training as well. I think that's it. Jane, Todd, Rich, anything else?
I put the link in the chat.
Okay.
Lots of good questions in there. I hope I answered all of them as people asked them. Great information, guys.
It was a lot of great, wonderful. I'm glad we did record this so people can go back. So we'll have to have you guys do this definitely again. Definitely. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We went over about 15 minutes, but it was definitely well worth it. So thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Looks like the sun is shining here in Columbus, and have a fantastic weekend. And hopefully you can join us next week. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.